Guys, Dimension Master Studios here. How y'all doing? Now, when it comes to Ninjago, we've seen a lot of pretty evil villains over the years, with many people considering these various villains to be some of the most evil villains in all Ninjago. Villains like the Overlord, the Omega, Vex, Harumi, Iron Baron. A lot of these villains are, again, ones who people consider to be the most evil villains in all Ninjago. But in today's video, I want to talk about one villain who I don't really see people talking about all that much. One villain who, despite making only one singular appearance in the entire franchise, I would argue is the most evil antagonist that we've ever seen when it comes to the Ninjago franchise. This is the One Who Is Many, the evilest Ninjago villain that you've never heard of. So, let's get into this whole thing. So, right off the bat, I'm sure you're probably wondering, who is the One Who Is Many? And that is a fair question to ask, given how, like I said, they only ever showed up one singular time in the entirety of the franchise, and they didn't even make an appearance in the show. When it comes to the One Who Is Many, the only time they ever appeared in anything for the franchise was just in the Ninjago graphic novel, Comic Crisis. This is their one and only appearance in the whole franchise, and it's something that isn't even properly canon when it comes to the show. Now, for those of you who are a bit confused about what I'm talking about, when it comes to the Ninjago graphic novels that we got earlier on in the franchise, back during the pilot season up to season 3, the graphic novels were in this weird position when it came to the canonicity of them compared to the show. Because according to the people who worked on the graphic novels and the show, the graphic novels could be canon to the franchise, however, they could only be canon so long as they didn't contradict anything that happened during the main show, which is something that happened a lot. So when it comes to the graphic novels, again, they're in this pretty weird position canon-wise when it comes to the franchise. And when it comes to Comic Crisis in particular, this is something that's especially strange because the entire premise behind this graphic novel is that it's meant to show the story of what happened to the ninja while they were on the Common Arcturus. In fact, the back of the graphic novel even says that this is the untold story, showing something, quote, as not seen on TV. Yet this graphic novel clearly isn't canon to the events of the show for a variety of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons definitely being that Lloyd isn't on the adventure with the rest of the team, even though he was with them back during Season 3 when they went to Arcturus. Either way, though, when it comes to this graphic novel, again, it isn't really canon to the events of the show. However, like I said, I'd argue that when it comes to the One Who Is Many, the main antagonist of the graphic novel, they are arguably the most evil Ninjago antagonists of all time. And with all that out of the way, let's actually take a look at the graphic novel and discuss the villain. Now, like I said, the premise for this graphic novel is that it takes place in between the events of episodes 7 and 8 of Rebooted, when the ninja were stuck on the Common Arcturus after the Ninjroids went back to Ninjago. And the idea behind the graphic novel is we see the ninja working to fix up the rocket ship that the Ninjroids use in order to get back to Ninjago. However, throughout the graphic novel, the ninja find that the rocket is being sabotaged and someone is trying to keep them on the comet. And as it turns out, the one who's actually been doing this is the One Who Is Many, although they don't actually learn their name until later on during the graphic novel. However, when it comes to the One Who Is Many, they are a pretty dangerous foe because they're actually an alien shapeshifter who has the ability to replicate people, and the One Who Is Many ends up turning into the various members of the ninja team in order to manipulate them in order to fight against one another and to sabotage the rocket to try and keep the ninja on the comet. So, when you think about it, when it comes to the plot of this graphic novel, it's basically Among Us when you really think about it, with the ninja having to deal with an imposter who's trying to sabotage the rocket ship. That being said, this graphic novel came out in 2014, so 4 years before Among Us actually came out, so that's interesting. But either way, that's the whole thing when it comes to the One Who Is Many. They're an alien shapeshifter who's trying to keep the ninja. Okay, I genuinely have no idea what happened there. The set just fell down and broke into a bunch of pieces, and I spent like 15 minutes trying to put it back together, which I was able to do, save for like this one piece, which I don't know where it goes. So yeah, and I have no idea what just happened there. But anyway, back on track, that's the whole idea behind the One Who Is Many. They're an alien shapeshifter who's just trying to keep the ninja on the comet. And at one point, the one who is many actually ends up kidnapping Jay, and the one who is many offers the ninja a challenge. If they're able to find Jay within the span of 1 day, then they'll be able to leave the comet. But if the team isn't able to do it, then they will have to dismantle the rocket and remain behind on the comet Arcturus forever. Zane agrees to this in order to give the ninja some time, and they go to find Jay, which they eventually do, and in the process they fight against the one who is many yet again, as well as come across the remains of an ancient civilization, as well as also learning some more information about the one who is many, as well as the comet Arcturus itself. This is also where the ninja actually learned that the alien shapeshifter's name is the one who is many. And anyway, when it comes to the comet Arcturus, turns out it was actually once a part of a gigantic planet that existed at one point. However, as a result of a bunch of fighting and wars that happened, it ultimately resulted in the planet's destruction and everyone on the planet dying. And as it turns out, the one who is many was responsible for that happening. They kept on turning into a bunch of different people, resulting in no one being able to trust anyone, ultimately resulting in the destruction of the planet. Which, let that sink in for a moment. Like I said earlier, we've seen some really evil villains before when it comes to the franchise. The Overlord tried to take over Ninjago multiple times and on 2 different occasions turned the people of Ninjago into mindless zombies. The Omega and the Forbidden Five were able to conquer multiple realms. Vex was able to manipulate Zane into becoming the Ice Emperor, resulting in the takeover of the Netherrealm and all the horrible stuff that they did after that. Harumi's actions resulted in 2 of Ninjago's most evil villains being resurrected. A bunch of innocent people ended up dying because of her. The Crystal Apocalypse happened, and so much more. Again, we've seen a lot of really evil villains over the years, but we've never seen a villain whose actions led to the destruction of an entire planet. That is on a completely different level in comparison to basically every other Ninjago villain that we've ever seen before. And even though the one who is many wasn't directly responsible for the destruction of the planet, their actions still had a ripple effect, which ultimately resulted in that happening, and again, the deaths of everyone who lived on the planet. That is definitely a really big deal. But here's the thing that really gets me. It's their motivation. The reason behind why the one who is many did everything that they did, both centuries ago, as they say, when it came to the destruction of the planet, as well as what they're doing now by trying to keep the ninja on the comet, they are doing all of this for entertainment. I'm not even joking. The one who is many was bored, and that's why they ultimately decided to do all the stuff that they did. They were just bored and they wanted something to do. That's why they turned into a bunch of people on the initial planet, and that's why they're messing with the ninja now. Because when it comes to the ninja, they are the first intelligent life forms that ever came to the comet. So this gave the one who is many the chance to finally get some entertainment after all this time, and that's what they've been doing by messing with the ninja. They've just been entertaining themselves by messing with the ninja and trying to keep them on the comet. And this is something that I do honestly think is really interesting, and I think it also helps set the one who is many apart from other Ninjago antagonists, because when it comes to a lot of Ninjago villains, their motivations for doing bad things usually ends up falling along the lines of something like, say, wanting power, wanting revenge, wanting to take over Ninjago, something like that. However, when it comes to the one who is many, they have a more unique motivation when it comes to what they're doing. Similar to other Ninjago villains that we've seen, like Unagami, who just wanted answers behind why he was created and why the Prime Empire project was abandoned, or Vex, who was doing everything out of his paranoia towards the world. Again, the one who is many has a more unique motivation behind why they're doing everything that they're doing, and I think this does definitely help set them apart from the other antagonists that we've seen when it comes to the franchise. But anyway, now the big question, how do the ninja defeat the one who is many? And the answer is Zane. You see, throughout the story, the one who is many turned into a bunch of different characters. They turned into Kai, Jay, Cole, as well as Lloyd, Nia, Wu, Evil Wu, and Cyrus Borg after he became a cyborg. Which is kind of strange because none of these characters were actually here on the comet, which to me suggests that when it comes to the one who is many, when they turn into someone, they can replicate their memories, so that's why the one who is many was able to turn into these different people. However, the one who is many never turned into Zane at any point. So Zane challenges the one who is many to turn into him, and the one who is many ultimately does that, turning into Zane. However, after that happens, the one who is many ends up short-circuiting and they're knocked out, with the explanation being that when it comes to Zane, because he's a Ninjroid, that meant that the One Who Is Many wasn't able to duplicate his Ninjroid form. Which I do think is a bit strange, because remember, the One Who Is Many was able to turn into both Wu and Cyrus Borg when they both had mechanical parts on them, but I guess because they were only partially mechanical, that's why they were able to do that. Meanwhile, Zane is a full robot. It is a bit confusing, but that's really the only explanation that I can come up with. But anyway, the One Who Is Many is defeated, and in order to ensure that they can't get out of the tunnels that they were in, the ninja decide to collapse the remains of an ancient civilization on top of the One Who Is Many, trapping them underneath it. So yeah, that's the end of the One Who Is Many, and that's where their story comes to an end. Or does it? You see, throughout the events of the graphic novel, Cole had been narrating the whole thing in the style of a Star Trek captain's monologue. And at the very end of the story, Cole brings up something that he talks about at the very beginning of the graphic novel, saying that anything that travels can carry a passenger. And Cole starts to wonder if the One Who Is Many potentially snuck onto the rocket, and Cole starts to worry about what might happen if they go back to Ninjago, and it turns out the One Who Is Many was on their ship. And then the graphic novel comes to an end on a shot of Cole's eye, revealing that the Cole who's been narrating the story was the One Who Is Many this entire time. Meaning that the One Who Is Many is going straight for Ninjago. And that is where the story comes to an end. It's unclear what happened to the original Cole. It's unclear if he's also on the rocket and none of the ninja are aware that the One Who Is Many got on the ship, or if the original Cole was somehow left behind on the comet. It's really unclear, but either way though, that is definitely a really big way to end the graphic novel, the reveal that there's an alien shapeshifter that's going to Ninjago. Although, once again, that's it. The One Who Is Many never made an appearance at any other point after this graphic novel. This was their one and only appearance in the entirety of the franchise. Which, to be fair, I do think that does make a lot of sense, because again, this was a non-canon story, and I really don't think the One Who Is Many could really be worked into any other kind of stories going forward. Still, I think this was definitely something really interesting to see. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. Overall, when it comes to the One Who Is Many, despite, again, them only making an appearance this one singular time in the entirety of the franchise, I still think that the One Who Is Many is a fairly interesting character, all things considered. The idea of the ninja going up against this alien shapeshifter who has the ability to turn into any one of them basically perfectly in order to perfectly replicate each of the ninja, thus fooling them into fighting each other, I think that's a legitimately interesting concept that we've never really seen before when it comes to the franchise. Additionally, their entire motivation being them wanting entertainment because they've been bored for a long time does help set the One Who Is Many apart from other villains by giving them a more unique motivation behind them doing everything. And again, like I said, I honestly think that this is the most evil Ninjago villain of all time, considering, again, the actions of the One Who Is Many led to the destruction of an entire planet and the deaths of everyone who lived on it. We have never seen a Ninjago villain whose actions have had that kind of effect. And so, as a result of that, that's the big reason why I think the One Who Is Many is the most evil Ninjago villain of all time. Now, do I think the One Who Is Many is going to make an appearance at any other point in the franchise? Definitely not. They are a very, very obscure character who only ever made one singular appearance in this graphic novel, and that's literally it. They've never been seen or referenced again at any other point, and there's a very, very minimal amount of information about them. I mean, if you go onto the Ninjago wiki, there isn't even a Wikipedia page dedicated to them, actually. Which I do think is kind of strange, because there's a lot of minor characters who do get Wikipedia pages, even when it comes to characters who have incredibly small, non-speaking roles when it comes to the show. Yet for the main antagonist of this graphic novel, that didn't happen. Which, again, I feel like that does go to show just how obscure and unknown this character really is. However, I still think that despite that, they're still a pretty fascinating character, all things considered. And when it comes to the One Who Is Many, like I said at the beginning of the video, they are the evilest Ninjago villain that you've never heard of. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys, so tell me down below what do you guys think. Tell me what are your guys' thoughts on the One Who Is Many, and tell me, was there anything that I left out in this video? Tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.